The stars looked different from the observation deck of the United Nations headquarters in New York. Jack Harlow stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the massive alien ship hover above the city. Its hull gleamed like polished obsidian in the morning sun. After 23 days of the vessel maintaining position over Earth, the sight still filled him with wonder and unease. "They're ready for us," said Dr. Samantha Reeves, appearing at his side. Her voice was steady, but Jack noticed how she gripped her tablet too tightly. Jack nodded. "About time. 3 weeks of establishing diplomatic protocols is enough to make anyone nervous." As former Marine and current diplomatic advisor to the UN Secretary General, Jack had been selected among the first humans to meet the aliens who called themselves the Vexari. They were the dominant species in what they termed the Galactic Confederation, an alliance of 7 advanced alien civilizations. "Remember," Samantha whispered as they walked toward the newly constructed meeting chamber, "let me handle the scientific questions. These beings think differently than we do." Jack smiled. "And you let me handle the inevitable moment when they ask why we spend so much time fighting each other." The meeting chamber had been built to Vexari specifications. The air was slightly thinner, the gravity adjusted to 1.2 times Earth normal, and the temperature uncomfortably warm. Jack felt sweat forming under his formal uniform before they even sat down. The Vexari delegation entered from the opposite side. Jack had seen images, but nothing prepared him for the reality of the aliens. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in what looked like polished stone plates over rippling muscle. Their forearms moved with surprising grace, and their faces featured 3 large eyes arranged in a triangle pattern. The lead Vexari's skin had a reddish hue that shifted subtly as it moved. "I am Ambassador Crex's Toll," the alien announced, its voice produced by a translation device at its throat, chief emissary of the Confederation High Council to Earth. The formal introductions lasted nearly an hour, with elaborate rituals and statements of peaceful intent. Jack noticed how the Vexari seemed to regard the human delegation with something like curiosity, mixed with dismissal. Finally, Ambassador Crex Toll addressed the purpose of the meeting. "We have completed our initial survey of your world and species. The Confederation extends an offer of protectorate status to humanity." Jack felt his spine stiffen. "Protectorate? We were hoping for full membership." The sound that came from the Vexari might have been laughter. "Full membership is reserved for species that can contribute meaningfully to the Confederation. Your kind lacks the biological advantages necessary for such status." Samantha leaned forward. "What advantages are those specifically?" The ambassador gestured to one of its scientists who activated a holographic display. It showed comparative anatomy between humans and the various Confederation species. "Humans possess inadequate physical structures," the scientist explained. "Your muscles are inefficient. Your bones break easily. Your skin offers minimal protection. You require constant rest and nourishment. Most concerning, your average lifespan is brief, barely 100 of your Earth years." Jack watched as the aliens methodically listed human weaknesses compared to their own hardy physiologies. The Vexari could survive in vacuum for short periods. The avian Luctari could regenerate limbs. The insectoid Muravex had natural armor that could withstand small arms fire. "We are not defenseless," Jack argued. "Human technology is primitive," interrupted Crex Toll, "though admirable for your development stage. This is why we offer protectorate status, not as an insult, but as recognition of your potential. In a few centuries, perhaps your descendants might qualify for advancement." 3 hours later, Jack paced angrily in the secure conference room where Earth's response team had gathered. "They're offering us scraps," he fumed. "Limited technology exchange, minimal trade rights, and a defensive umbrella that basically makes us dependent on their protection." The UN Secretary General looked tired. "What choice do we have? They're centuries ahead of us. If they decided to take what they wanted from Earth, could we stop them?" Samantha stood up suddenly. "I think there's something they're not telling us." All eyes turned to her. The Vexari mentioned the Sclarian Empire 3 times. They described it as expanding aggressively. I think the Confederation is at war or near to it. Jack stopped pacing. And they need allies. Or soldiers, Samantha added, but they don't think we're worth recruiting. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He reviewed the meeting recordings, focusing on every mention of Confederation military forces. By morning, he had a wild idea. They're wrong about us, he told Samantha over breakfast. They're measuring strength by their standards, not ours. Samantha nodded. Their evolutionary paths created different advantages. The Vexari evolved on a high-gravity world with intense radiation. Of course, they developed physical durability. But humans, Jack continued, growing excited, we evolved as persistence hunters. We can't outfight a lion, but we can outrun it. Over distance, we adapt, we endure. We keep going when logic says we should quit. What are you suggesting? I want to propose a trial program. Let humans volunteer for their military. Let us prove what we can do. The idea faced resistance from both sides. Many human leaders feared sending people to fight in an alien war. The Vexari diplomats insisted humans were too fragile for Confederation combat. 2 weeks of intense negotiation followed. Jack and Samantha worked tirelessly, gathering human performance data and presenting it in terms the aliens could understand. They emphasized human endurance, adaptability, and tactical thinking. Humans can sleep anywhere, eat almost anything, and fight while injured, Jack argued before the Confederation representatives. We may not be as strong or tough as your species, but we don't quit. Finally, reluctantly, Ambassador Krexistol agreed to take the proposal to the High Council. They will likely refuse, he warned, but I will present your case. 3 days later, to everyone's surprise, approval came through. The Confederation would accept 50 human volunteers for training at their military facility on Nexus 9, a fortress world near the edge of Confederation space. They only agreed because they think we'll fail, Samantha said as they reviewed the training protocols. This is designed for beings twice our strength. Jack smiled grimly. Then we'll just have to surprise them. Word spread quickly, and thousands volunteered for the 50 spots. The final selection included soldiers, athletes, survival specialists, and a few people whose main qualification was sheer determination. On the day of departure, Jack watched. The chosen volunteers board the Confederation transport ship. He and Samantha would accompany them as observers and advisors. You know what we're really doing, don't you? Samantha asked quietly. Jack nodded. We're fighting for humanity's place among the stars. As the ship rose through Earth's atmosphere, Jack thought about the long odds they faced. The Vexari had dismissed humans as weak, but they had never seen humans truly tested. They didn't understand that human strength wasn't in our bodies, but in our will. The stars grew brighter as the ship accelerated away from Earth. Somewhere out there, the Yao true test waited. 6 weeks had passed since the humans arrived on Nexus 9. The fortress world orbited a red dwarf star, with gravity 30% higher than Earth's, and days that lasted 40 hours. Only 37 of the original 50 volunteers remained in the program. The others had been sent home with broken bones, torn muscles, or simply because they couldn't keep up. Ryan Phillips wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished another set of strength exercises. His muscles burned from the constant strain of moving in higher gravity. Before coming to space, Ryan had been a construction worker from Detroit with no military experience. Now he found himself becoming a leader among the human recruits. Phillips, water break is over, shouted Commander Azak, the Vexari drill instructor. Report to low-gravity training area. Ryan nodded and gathered his gear. Around him, the other human trainees did the same. They moved with the careful efficiency they had all developed to conserve energy. Even simple tasks demanded more effort on this world. Olivia Martinez fell into step beside Ryan. Once an Olympic swimmer, she had proven to have extraordinary endurance even by human standards. Her lean frame had become even more wiry during training. Azak is in a bad mood today, she whispered. I heard he lost a bet about how many of us would quit by now. Ryan smiled slightly. He bet on all of us washing out? Not all. just 45 out of 50. The low-gravity training area was a massive dome where the artificial gravity was reduced to simulate different planetary conditions. Inside, floating obstacles created a three-dimensional maze that trainees had to navigate while completing various tasks. It was intended to prepare soldiers for combat in space stations and low-gravity moons. The human trainees lined up alongside alien recruits from 4 other species. The Vexari, with their stone-like skin, stood tall and confident. The tentacled Marivex clung to ceiling fixtures. The feathered Luktari preened nervously, and the gelatinous Broll oozed slightly in the heated room. Today's exercise is complex extraction, Commander Azak announced. Teams will navigate the course, locate the target, and return to the starting point. Each team will consist of mixed species to simulate real combat scenarios. Ryan found himself assigned to a team with 2 Vexari soldiers and a Luktari scout. They eyed him with thinly veiled doubt. By now, Ryan was used to it. The alien species viewed humans as fragile curiosities, not real soldiers. "I'll take rear position," Ryan offered. It was the least desirable spot, and volunteering for it sometimes earned him a small measure of respect. The teams launched into the obstacle course one by one. When Ryan's turn came, the difference in movement styles became immediately apparent. The Vexari powered through using their immense strength. The Luktari used its wings to control its trajectory with precision. Ryan had to rely on careful planning and momentum conservation, skills he'd developed working construction in tight spaces. Halfway through the course, an alarm blared through the facility. Red lights flashed, and Commander Azak's voice came over the speakers. "All training suspended. Combat qualified personnel report to briefing room A. This is not a drill." The obstacle course gravity returned to normal, causing several trainees to fall. Ryan managed to grab a handhold and lower himself safely to the floor. He looked to Azak for instructions, but the commander was already rushing out with the veteran Confederation soldiers. "What's happening?" Olivia asked, joining Ryan. "I don't know, but it sounds serious." The human trainees gathered in their assigned quarters, exchanging nervous theories about the alarm. An hour passed before Jack Harlow and Dr. Samantha Reeves joined them. "We have a situation," Jack explained, his face grim. "A Confederation research outpost on Mira 6, a moon in this system, has sent a distress signal. They're under attack by Sclarian raiders." "The Sclarians are the Empire the Confederation is fighting?" asked Ryan. Samantha nodded. "Yes. This is the first direct attack in this sector. The main Confederation fleet is 3 days away, so they're assembling a response team from available personnel on Nexus 9. "Are we going?" Olivia asked. "No," Jack said. "Commander Azak has selected 20 veteran soldiers and 5 trainees for the mission." "5 trainees?" Ryan repeated. "Which ones?" "5 Vexari trainees," Samantha clarified. "Azak says humans aren't ready for combat." The room filled with protests from the human volunteers. They had endured weeks of brutal training for this exact purpose, to prove their worth in combat. "This isn't right," Ryan said, standing up. "We didn't come all this way to sit on the sidelines." Jack held up his hands for quiet. "I agree with you. I've argued with Azak, but he won't budge. He says humans are too valuable as a scientific study to risk in combat." "Valuable?" Olivia laughed bitterly. "Yesterday he called me a soft-skinned liability." Ryan paced the room, thinking. "What's the situation at the outpost? What kind of attack?" Samantha brought up a holographic display showing a small moon with a domed facility on its surface. The outpost has 25 researchers studying spatial anomalies. The distress call reported about 30 Sclarian raiders. Communications cut off 15 minutes after the initial call. Ryan studied the display, noticing details about the landscape and the outpost design. 6 years of solving practical problems on construction sites had taught him to see patterns others missed. "The approach to the facility isn't right," he said, suddenly. "Look at these landing patterns. They're too organized, too perfect." "What do you mean?" Jack asked. "Raiders don't land in formation. They scatter to create confusion and multiple entry points." Ryan pointed to the neat arrangement of Sclarian ships. "This looks more like a trap," Olivia finished for him. "The Rescue team was preparing to depart when Ryan, Olivia, and Jack arrived at the hangar bay. Commander Azak was reviewing final mission parameters with his troops. "Commander," Jack called out, "we need to speak with you about the mission." Azak turned, his stone-like face showing annoyance. "The mission briefing is classified, Advisor Harlow. Your humans are not participating." "It's about the Sclarian landing pattern," Ryan said quickly. "I think it's a trap." Azak's three eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation. "And what would a human construction worker know about Sclarian military tactics?" "I know patterns," Ryan insisted. "The way those ships are arranged, it's too careful. Raiders don't operate like that." The commander studied Ryan briefly. "Your concern is noted. Now return to your quarters." "But," Ryan began. "That is an order," Azak said firmly. "Humans will remain on Nexus 9 where it's safe." As the Confederation rescue team boarded their ship, Ryan watched with growing frustration. Beside him, Olivia and Jack looked equally concerned. "They're walking into something bad," Ryan said quietly. "And they won't listen to us because we're weak humans." Jack nodded slowly. "Then I guess we'll have to show them what weak humans can do." The emergency hangar bay was quiet after the rescue team departed for Mira 6. Ryan Phillips looked around at the remaining equipment and the small group of humans who had gathered after the commanders left. "They're not going to listen to us," Ryan said, "but that doesn't mean we can't help." Jack Harlow shook his head. "What are you suggesting?" Commander Azak gave direct orders for humans to stay on Nexus 9. "He ordered us to stay where it's safe," Ryan replied. "But if we're right about this being a trap, then nowhere is truly safe. The Sclarians could target this base next." Olivia Martinez nodded in agreement. "We need a plan. We can't just sit here while they walk into danger." Ryan walked over to a display panel and pulled up information about the research outpost on Mira 6. The others gathered around him, curious about what he was thinking. "The Confederation rescue team will follow standard protocols," Ryan explained. "They'll land here, secure a perimeter, and move in formation toward the main entrance. If this is a trap like I think it is, the Sclarians will be waiting." "What kind of trap could they set for the Vexari?" asked Bill Cooper, another human trainee. "Those guys are basically walking tanks." Dr. Samantha Reeves tapped on her data tablet. "I've been reviewing Confederation battle reports. The Sclarians have been developing weapons that target specific weaknesses of each Confederation species." "Like what?" Olivia asked. "For the Vexari, it's electromagnetic pulses that disrupt their neural implants and weapon systems," Samantha explained. "They're highly dependent on their integrated technology." Ryan thought back to the training exercises they had endured. The Vexari relied heavily on their advanced tech for targeting, communications, and battlefield awareness. Without it, they would still be strong but far less effective. "We need to get to that moon," Ryan decided. "Not to fight, but to warn them and help if things go wrong." Jack looked doubtful. "And how do you propose we do that? We can't just steal a ship." "We don't need to steal one," Ryan said with a smile. "There's a maintenance shuttle scheduled for a supply run to the outpost tomorrow. We could expedite that mission." What followed was a flurry of quiet activity. While most of the base focused on monitoring the rescue mission, Ryan and a small team of humans prepared the maintenance shuttle for an earlier departure. Jack reluctantly helped by creating a diversion in the command center, while Samantha used her scientific clearance to access the shuttle bay systems. 2 hours later, Ryan, Olivia, and 3 other human volunteers were aboard the small shuttle, breaking away from Nexus 9 and setting course for Mira 6. "This is either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever done," muttered Steve Geller, a former paramedic who had joined the human volunteers. "Probably both," Ryan admitted as he studied the shuttle's simple controls. The vessel wasn't designed for combat. It was a basic transport with minimal shielding and no weapons. The journey to Mira 6 took just under an hour. As they approached the small moon, they could see the Confederation rescue ship already landed near the research facility. "No signs of combat on the exterior," Olivia observed, looking at the sensor readings. "Either they secured it quickly, or They're already trapped inside, Ryan finished. The humans landed their shuttle on the far side of a ridge out of direct sight from the main facility. They had brought basic emergency equipment and whatever protective gear they could find, which wasn't much. Standard work suits with limited oxygen supply and no real armor. Remember, we're not here to fight a war, Ryan told the team as they prepared to exit the shuttle. We're here to scout and assist if possible. If things look too dangerous, we retreat. The low gravity of Mira 6 made moving across the rocky surface easier than expected. The humans bounded in long, efficient strides, covering ground quickly, while staying low to avoid detection. When they reached a vantage point overlooking the research facility, Ryan used a small viewfinder to assess the situation. The Confederation rescue ship sat undisturbed on the landing pad. There were no signs of external damage to the facility, no evidence of fighting. "It's too quiet," Steve said. "Where is everyone?" Ryan studied the facility layout. "The main entrance is likely where the rescue team entered, but look there." He pointed to a smaller structure 100 meters from the main building. "That's an auxiliary power station. It should have an emergency access tunnel." "Think we can get in that way?" Olivia asked. "Worth a try," Ryan replied. "We need to see what's happening inside." The team made their way to the power station, moving carefully from rock to rock for cover. The station door was locked, but Steve, who had experience with mechanical systems, was able to override the simple emergency lock. Inside, they found a narrow maintenance tunnel that led toward the main facility. The passage was cramped, forcing them to crawl in single file. For once, being smaller than the Vixari was an advantage. "Listen," Olivia whispered as they approached the end of the tunnel. They could hear muffled sounds of movement and strange clicking noises that Ryan guessed were Sclarian voices. The tunnel ended at a small access panel. Ryan carefully loosened the panel and peered through the opening into what appeared to be a storage room. It was empty, but he could hear activity in the corridor beyond. "I think the Sclarians have control of the facility," Ryan whispered to the others. "We need to figure out what happened to the rescue team." They slipped out of the tunnel and into the storage room, closing the panel behind them. Ryan cracked open the door to the corridor and looked out. The hallway was clear, but he could see strange devices attached to the walls at regular intervals. "Those weren't in the facility schematics," Olivia noted, looking over his shoulder. Samantha had provided them with basic information about Sclarian technology before they left. Ryan recognized the devices from her briefing. "Those are signal jammers," he said. "They're blocking communications and probably disrupting the Vexari neural interfaces." A plan began to form in Ryan's mind. If we can disable those jammers, the Confederation team might be able to regroup and fight back. "And how do we do that without getting caught?" Steve asked. "We don't have weapons." Ryan looked at their small team and thought about what humans did best. "We adapt. We find ways to survive with what we have. The Sclarians expect to fight Vexari warriors, not human infiltrators. So we use the air ducts," Olivia suggested, pointing to a ventilation grate near the ceiling. "I bet we can fit where the Vexari and Sclarians can't." Ryan nodded. "Exactly. We move through the facility, locate the jammer's central control, and shut it down. Then we find our allies." One by one, they climbed into the ventilation system. The metal ducts were narrow and would have been impossible for the larger alien species to navigate, but the humans could crawl through them, albeit uncomfortably. As they moved through the hidden pathways of the facility, they began to get glimpses of what had happened. Through grates and openings, they saw Sclarian soldiers patrolling the corridors. In the main laboratory, Confederation personnel, including the rescue team, were being held in some kind of energy field. The trap had worked perfectly. "There," Ryan whispered, pointing through a grate. "That must be the control center for the jammers." Below them, 3 Sclarians stood around a central console. The aliens were tall, insect-like creatures with multiple limbs and exoskeletons that gleamed with a metallic sheen. The humans exchanged glances. Now came the hard part. "Ready to show them what weak humans can do?" Ryan asked quietly. Olivia nodded, her expression determined. "They have no idea what's coming." Ryan studied the Sclarian control room through the ventilation grate. Three tall insect-like aliens worked at various stations, their multiple limbs moving with precision across the controls. The central console pulsed with a blue light that matched the rhythm of the jammers they had seen in the corridors. "We need a distraction," Ryan whispered to his team. They had retreated a short distance down the vent to discuss their plan. "I have an idea," Steve said. He pulled a small toolkit from his pack that he had brought from the shuttle. "These maintenance shuttles carry basic repair supplies. I found some heating elements we could use to trigger the fire suppression system." Olivia nodded. "Good thinking. If we place them in different areas, it might spread the Sclarians thin. We need to be careful," Ryan cautioned. "If we set off too many alarms, they might decide to just eliminate the prisoners." They divided the heating elements between them and split into two groups. Ryan and Olivia would handle the control room, while Steve and the others would create distractions and try to locate any additional human team members who might not be with the main group of prisoners. "Meet back at the shuttle in 2 hours, no matter what," Ryan instructed. "If anyone doesn't make it, the others leave and bring help." The team members nodded grimly. They all understood the stakes. Ryan and Olivia made their way through the ventilation system to a position near the mess hall, far from the control room and the prisoner holding area. There they activated the first heating element and placed it against a sensor. Within minutes, alarms blared throughout the facility. Through a nearby grate, they saw Sclarian soldiers rushing toward the mess hall. The plan was working. "Now for Phase 2, Ryan said. They quickly moved through the ducts toward the control room, stopping at 2 more locations to activate heating elements. With each new alarm, more Sclarians were drawn away from their posts. When they reached the control room again, only one Sclarian remained, looking anxiously between the console and the door. Ryan looked at Olivia. "Ready?" She nodded, her face set with determination. Ryan removed the grate as quietly as possible, then lowered himself down behind a large piece of equipment while the Sclarian's back was turned. Olivia followed, landing with barely a sound. The Sclarian was speaking into a communication device, the clicking language incomprehensible to the humans. Ryan picked up a metal tool from a nearby table and, taking a deep breath, threw it across the room. The clattering noise caused the Sclarian to whirl around, moving toward the sound with its weapon raised. As it passed their hiding spot, Olivia darted out and jammed a heating element directly against the alien's exposed neck joint, a vulnerable point they had observed during their surveillance. The Sclarian made a high-pitched shriek and collapsed, its nervous system temporarily overloaded by the sudden heat against a sensitive area. "Quick, the console," Ryan said, rushing to the central control unit. Olivia stood guard by the door while Ryan examined the alien technology. The interface was unlike anything he had seen before, covered in strange symbols and pulsing lights. "Don't know which controls are for the jammers," Ryan admitted after a moment of frustration. Olivia glanced back. "Then break it all. That's what humans are good at, right?" Ryan smiled grimly. He grabbed a heavy tool from his pack and brought it down hard on the console. Sparks flew as he struck it again and again, smashing through the alien technology with brute force. The blue pulsing lights flickered and died. Throughout the facility, the signal jammers went dark. "That should do it," Ryan said, breathing heavily from the exertion. "Let's find the prisoners." They slipped out of the control room and into the corridor, moving carefully to avoid Sclarian patrols that were still responding to the multiple alarms. The facility was in chaos, exactly as they had hoped. As they approached the main laboratory where the prisoners were being held, they heard sounds of fighting. They peered around a corner to see an extraordinary sight. Commander Azak and the other Vexari soldiers had broken free from their restraints. With their neural interfaces functioning again, their weapons had reactivated. They were engaging a group of Sclarian guards in fierce combat. "It worked," Olivia whispered excitedly. Ryan nodded, but his attention was on a different problem. Several Sclarian soldiers were heading toward the laboratory from another corridor, preparing to flank the Confederation forces. "They need warning," Ryan said. Without waiting for Olivia's response, he picked up a discarded Sclarian weapon and charged into the open. "Commander Azak!" Ryan shouted. "Sclarians coming from the east corridor." The Vexari commander's three eyes widened in shock at seeing a human in the facility, but he reacted immediately, directing two of his soldiers to cover the eastern approach. Ryan and Olivia joined the fight, using the alien weapon and their smaller size to their advantage. The Sclarians had prepared for Vexari tactics, direct confrontation, and overwhelming force. They weren't prepared for humans who ducked, weaved, and used the environment to create advantages. Olivia slid under a console and emerged on the other side of a Sclarian soldier, striking at its leg joints. Ryan used his construction experience to identify structural weaknesses in the laboratory, collapsing a storage shelf onto two advancing enemies. The battle lasted only minutes. With their jamming technology disabled and faced with unexpected resistance, the Sclarian forces began to retreat. "Secure the prisoners," Commander Azak ordered his troops. "Prepare for possible counterattack." Then he turned to Ryan and Olivia, his stone-like face unreadable. "You disobeyed direct orders, humans." Ryan stood straight, meeting the commander's gaze. "Yes, sir, we did." "You risked your lives in defiance of Confederation protocols." "Yes, sir." "You infiltrated an active combat zone without proper authorization or equipment." "That's correct, sir." The Vexari commander was silent for a long moment. Then, to their surprise, he made a rumbling sound that they recognized as Vexari laughter. "And, in doing so, you saved this entire mission," Azak concluded. "How did you know it was a trap?" "Pattern recognition," Ryan explained. "The landing formation wasn't right for raiders, and humans are good at spotting things that don't fit expected patterns." "And how did you disable the jammers?" "My soldiers couldn't get near them without their neural systems shutting down." Olivia smiled. "We used the ventilation system. Being small has its advantages." Commander Azak looked at the two humans with new respect. "It seems I have underestimated your species' capabilities. We may not be as strong or as tough as the Vexari," Ryan said, "but humans have our own strengths." The reunion with Steve and the other human team members was joyful. They had succeeded in freeing several researchers who had been held in a separate area, using similar tactics of distraction and exploiting their smaller size. As they prepared to return to Nexus 9, Commander Azak approached Ryan once more. "Phillips," he said, using Ryan's name for the first time. "The Confederation has much to learn about human potential. I believe it is time we reevaluated what it means to be strong." Ryan nodded, thinking of all the humans back on Nexus 9 and the billions more on Earth. "I think that's a good idea, sir." 3 years had passed since the incident on Mira 6. Ryan Phillips stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned spacecraft UES Defiance, looking out at Earth below. The blue planet seemed smaller now that he had seen so many others, but no less beautiful. "Nervous about the ceremony?" asked Olivia Martinez, joining him at the viewport. Ryan smiled at his friend and fellow officer. "A little. It's not every day you get a speech from the Vexari Supreme Commander." Today marked the formal commissioning of the first human-designed vessel for the Confederation fleet. The UES Defiance represented a new philosophy in space warfare, one that emphasized adaptability and versatility over raw power. Lessons learned from human participation in the conflict. 3 years, Olivia said, shaking her head in wonder. "Remember when they thought we were too weak to fight?" Ryan nodded. "Now we're 15% of their special forces." After the success at Mira 6, everything had changed. Commander Azak had submitted a detailed report praising the human team's ingenuity and effectiveness. The Confederation High Council, initially skeptical, had reviewed the mission logs and made an unprecedented decision. They authorized the formation of specialized human units within their military structure. Recruitment centers had opened across Earth. Thousands volunteered, seeing an opportunity for humanity to prove its worth on the galactic stage. The first official human unit was designated the Terran Adaptive Response Division. Ryan and Olivia had both earned officer positions, helping to develop training protocols that emphasized humanity's unique advantages: creativity under pressure, hand-eye coordination, endurance, and adaptability to different environments. "Brian, to get ready," Olivia said, checking her watch. "The ceremony starts in an hour." They made their way to their quarters to change into their formal uniforms. The Defiance was filled with activity as both human and alien crew prepared for the important event. What made this ship special wasn't just its human design. It was the first truly integrated vessel, with crew members from all Confederation species working together based on their specialized abilities rather than rigid hierarchies. When Ryan entered the main hangar bay where the ceremony would take place, he was struck by how far things had come. The vast chamber was filled with representatives from across the Confederation and Earth. Diplomatic delegations, military officers, and media from dozens of worlds had come to witness this historic moment. Near the front of the assembly, Ryan saw familiar faces: Jack Harlow, who had become Earth's ambassador to the Confederation Council, and Dr. Samantha Reeves, whose research on comparative xenobiology had revolutionized their understanding of different species' strengths and weaknesses. Ryan took his place with the other officers as the ceremony began. Various dignitaries spoke about the importance of the new ship and what it represented for human Confederation relations. Finally, the Vexari Supreme Commander Zel Tarek approached the podium. The Supreme Commander was impressive even by Vexari standards, standing nearly 9 feet tall with stone-like skin that gleamed like polished granite. 3 years ago, such a figure would have seemed alien and intimidating to Ryan. Now he recognized a respected ally. Today marks not just the commissioning of a new vessel, Zel Tarek began, his translated voice ringing through the hangar bay. It represents the evolution of the Confederation itself. The commander's 3 eyes scanned the assembly before continuing. When humans first joined our alliance, we offered them protectorate status. We believed their physical structure made them unsuited for the challenges of interstellar conflict. We measured their worth by standards that evolved on our worlds, not theirs. Ryan listened intently, remembering those early days of dismissal and doubt. We valued physical might and technological advancement, Zel Tarek continued, but failed to recognize that true strength lies in adaptation, in persistence, in the willingness to stand again after falling. The Supreme Commander gestured toward the human officers. Humanity has taught the Confederation that resilience outweighs resistance, that intelligence supersedes intimidation, and that courage cannot be quantified by physical parameters. Zel Tarek then did something unprecedented. He stepped away from the podium and approached Ryan directly. From a ceremonial case, he removed a medal, the Confederation's highest military honor. Officer Ryan Phillips, the Supreme Commander said formally, for your actions on Mira 6 and your continued service, the High Council awards you the Star of Nexus. Ryan stood speechless as the medal was placed around his neck. This honor had never before been given to a non-founding species member. Your actions that day saved 23 Confederation lives, Zel Tarek continued. But more importantly, they opened our eyes to what humans truly are, not a weak species to be protected, but valuable allies with unique and essential capabilities. After the ceremony, Ryan found himself surrounded by well-wishers, both human and alien. Commander Azak, now a senior tactical advisor, clasped his shoulder with genuine respect. The Sclarians have requested peace talks, Azak informed him quietly. First time in 3 centuries. Our intelligence suggests they fear what they cannot predict, the human approach to conflict. Ryan raised his eyebrows in surprise. Peace? After all this fighting? Sometimes the strongest position is knowing when to lay down arms, Azak replied. Another lesson we've learned from your kind. Later, Ryan found himself alone with Dr. Samantha Reeves on an upper deck of the Defiance. I have something to share with you, Samantha said, showing him her data tablet. Newly declassified research from the Confederation scientists. Ryan examined the complex diagrams and charts. What am I looking at? They've finally understood why humans evolved as we did, Samantha explained. On our unusually diverse and challenging planet, physical strength proved less advantageous than adaptability and cooperation. What the aliens initially perceived as weakness was actually specialization for versatility. Ryan handed back the tablet, thinking about how far they had come. They called us weak, he said quietly. Samantha nodded. Because they didn't understand what strength really means. As the Defiance prepared for its first official mission, Ryan stood once more at the observation window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species waited to be discovered, perhaps with their own unique strengths and perspectives to add to the galactic community. The Confederation had been changed by humanity's inclusion, becoming more adaptable, more creative in its approach to both war and peace. And humans had changed too, finding their place among the stars not by becoming more like the alien species, but by embracing what made them distinctly human. "Ready for departure, Officer Phillips," a young ensign reported. Ryan turned from the window, the star of Nexus gleaming on his chest. "Let's show them what humans can do," he said with a smile. The Defiance's engines hummed to life, carrying humanity's future into the vast unknown. No longer dismissed as weak, but valued for their unique strength, the power to adapt, to endure, and to see possibilities where others saw only obstacles.